Hello everyone and welcome back to a new tutorial. My name is Abdul Qadir and this is the first tutorial of 2020. So if you are new to this channel, consider subscribing, liking, commenting and sharing. And in this tutorial we are going to talk about cutscenes again. In one of my recent tutorials, we have created some intro cutscenes where the level starts and the cutscene plays, and then the third-person character regains control and starts the level. In this tutorial, we are going to create mid-level cutscenes, which are triggered by some blueprints. So, mid-level cutscenes usually are created for two main purposes inside the level. One of the purposes is to inform the player about his surroundings if we want to take his attention to something in the surrounding, or to inform him on the path that he is going to take. So in this tutorial we are going to create this cutscene where the camera starts next to the stairs and then shows the player his way to the top of the level, to the end of the level, for example. So without any further ado, let's get started. So first things first, we are going to do a level sequence, and next we are going to create our blueprint. So let's start directly by going to cinematics and adding level sequence. Once that opens, it will ask us to enter its name, let's say cutscene, and save it. Once that is done, the sequencer is going to open in a free window and we can dock it wherever we want. I like to always dock it under the viewport on the bottom, and we have a lot of things in here. The main thing that we want to do before starting is to enable the automatic key adding. So it's by default disabled. We want to enable it by clicking on it and we'll have the key icon on. Next thing we want to do is to go to the exact place that the camera is going to start from. Let's say from here, and click on a new camera and set it as the current camera cut. Once we've done that, you can see the pilot active is on, which means that we embody that camera right now as if we are wearing it, or like as if it is in our hands. Next thing we want to do is to check the camera components. It has the focal length. As you can see, I can change it to create a panoramic view, or you can really focus on stuff, but let's keep it at 35, the default value. And the next thing is focus. As we adjust focus, if you can see that when the manual focus is 0, it means that the camera is looking directly in front of it, like 1 or 2 millimeters in front of it. So we really need to have close things to the camera. We don't want that, obviously. We want the manual focus to be as good as possible for a good view of the cutscene. So after we set it to a good view, we want to check the aperture. As you can see in here, it's by default 2.8. If you increase it, the background, if it's visible, the background will not have any blur, and if it's 1.2, the background is going to blur, and that's usually for when we have closed things and we want the background to blur. Let's keep it at 2.8, the default. The next thing and the last thing is the transform. It's where and the location and the rotation of the cinematic camera actor. Once everything is set as we wish, we want to create the first keys for these four components. Next thing we want to do is this. Before we do anything, let me explain. This is the cutscene from 0 to 140 or something like that. You can always adjust how long your cutscene will be. Let's keep it as it was. And this red thing that we are going to drag is to check for the cutscene track. So it at 0, we already put some keys. Let's go to something like 30, look up a little bit, and as you can see directly, a new key is automatically added. Something else that we want to do is to, by right clicking and WASD, we want to go up the stairs. Then if we release the right mouse key, it will update the transform directly. Next thing we want to do is to go to something like 60 and go a little bit forward with a little bit of rotation. Once that is done, we can carry on by going to, let's say, 90 and coming somewhere like here and releasing. It directly adds a new keyframe. Then we can go to, let's say, 100, for example, go a little bit more and rotating. So this is basically how you create your cutscene track. And once that is done, I want, before it finishes, to look back to the player, and that's it for our track. Next thing we want to do is to save the current sequence, and you can directly see how it is saved, and we want to eject from our cutscene. As you can see, we can always see the camera here. When it finishes, we can play in order to see how the camera is going to go. Wow, that was too fast, but it's alright. It's not so bad. If you like to go back to the pilot mode to edit something or see it in the viewport, you can click on Unlock Cinematic Actor from Viewport. You can lock it and unlock it. So let's lock it for a minute and see the path that we are going to go. Wow, that was really fast, but it's alright. So let's eject and close our sequencer. Now we are free again to move freely inside the level. Next thing we want to do, now that the cutscene is ready to work, we want to create a new blueprint class, an actor, and let's name it triggering, or let's name it cutscene trigger. Once that is done, we want to open it, and we have this. From the top left inside the components, we want to add a new component, which is box collision. Once that is added, give it a name like box collision. Alright. And we can change its scale a little bit so that the player can move inside of it. So he can collide with it from different places. Compile that and go to the event graph. Next thing we want to do is to delete these two and keep the event begin play inside the blueprint because we are going to work with it. So let's directly start by creating a level sequence player and selecting our cutscene from the level sequence in here. and the return value should be promoted to a variable, and let's give it a name. Let's say cutscene. This is very good. Next thing we want to do is to click on our box collision and go down inside the details, and once we see on component begin overlap, click on that add button, and you can directly see on component begin overlap with a box collision. Once that is done, we want to do three things inside this component overlap. We want firstly to disable our character's movement, and then play the cutscene, and then re-enable his movement. So let's start by getting the player character, and we want to make sure that the other component is equal to the player character, and we want to create a branch. So the branch, if you come from a programming background, it's like an if statement. So this is the condition. So if the other actor is equal to the player character, if it's true, we can do a few things, which is actually disable input. And the target is going to be the character, and the controller will be get player controller. Let's connect that to the player controller. Next thing we want to do is to actually playing our cutscene. So what we need to do is to get our cutscene variable that we've created from setting it here. We want to get it, and from it we want to play. So we disabled the input of the character and we played the cutscene. Once that is done, we want to set a timer by event. Set timer by event, and we want to get the duration, the length, get length of the cutscene, and the time is going to the time node. So after the cutscene is finished, we are going to create an event, which is a custom event, and let's change its name to enable movement. Once that is done, we want to enable input for the player character and the player controller. So while selecting these two, you can directly Ctrl W to duplicate them and plug everything in its place. Once that is done, we can just comment by clicking C and naming it trigger cutscene. And for the first one, let's say it is begin play. Once that is done, you can compile and save that and exit our blueprint. Now we want to place our cutscene in here. Once that is done, we can now try to play it. As you can see, our player cannot move now while the cutscene is playing, and now we regain movement, so we know exactly what we are going to do. Wow, we forgot to do something. The collision box stays there, so every time we collide with this box collision, the cutscene is going to start again, and this is something that you would want to do and maybe you wouldn't want to do. For me, I wouldn't want to do that, so let me go inside the cutscene trigger blueprint, and after everything is done, what I want to do is to destroy my actor. So destroy actor, and the actor is self, which is this one, and it only contains the collision, so it's okay. Let's compile and save that and try again. So the cutscene starts, shows me the way, and then if I go again, it's alright. It doesn't play again. So if you find this tutorial useful, please consider subscribing, commenting, liking, and sharing. And thank you so much for watching. This was Abdul Qadir, and stay tuned for more tutorials. Have a good day.